I call this meeting to order. I'd like to get an approval of consent agenda, A, the minutes from 1/24/25 meeting, and B, the board meeting schedule for 2025. It should have been in your packets, and I'm sure you've all looked at it. We're going to be following Robert's rules now, so I'm going to be doing we're going to be doing a roll call. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is that Steve?
Paul.
Paul. Thank you, Paul. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so that's easy enough there. You can mark down that the entirety of the board approved. Okay, we're to number 3 on our agenda now, and during public session, we actually do not have anyone in the building today. Do we have anyone online?
We have Barbara Grant, then Fran, Leanne, and Paul.
Okay, so no.
Nobody's raised their hands.
Okay, sometimes what I'll do is if people, they may not realize that we've changed this to a little bit earlier, so I might come right back to member comments at the end, just to let someone be heard if they so want to be heard. And at this point, we're going to move to number 4, the interim director's report. Russ?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so for the benefit of new directors and anyone else listening, I do a report on red flags and green flags. Red flags meaning things not going as well as we would like. Green flags meaning good trends. So the first one is on the red flags, a need to improve certain ARC processes. This is something that we're working on, and we're going to talk about later about some ideas to improve the flow, both from the committee as well as internally, to make the process smoother and better for the year 2025. The second one is the Corporate Transparency Act. There's been a lot of confusion about this particular issue. Some of you may be aware, but this has gone back and forth in the court systems. The most recent ruling was it was stayed for a period of time, but we're going to go ahead and complete the filing of that. I think there's only one item we're waiting on from a director to get that finished, and we'll have that very soon. So that'll be buttoned up, and it'll be something that we don't have to worry about anymore. There's a need to consider changing the fiscal year in 2026. This is one of the things we've spoken about briefly. And the current practice is the fiscal year is a calendar year, but that also coincides very closely with our election process and our annual meeting. It's a lot for the staff to administer in a very short period of time, especially with the holidays going on. My suggestion would be to consider perhaps changing the fiscal year next year to start in March. That would give a little bit better spacing. That's something that the new director can consider with the board, and if that makes sense, to consider how to do that as we go forward. And there's also a need to refresh the reserve study in 2025. We mentioned this before. I just came back from the CMA conference, and I found some other vendors that also do reserve studies. So I think that's something that should be shopped for this refresh, and also looking at the one we did in 2020, but other vendors as well, to see what makes the most sense as we go forward. Okay, next is green flags, things that are going better. There has been a really positive reaction to the ARC guideline amendments. Terry Stillman led that effort and simplified the language. I think that's been well received, and we look forward to that happening.
Hey, Russ, has that been published? I didn't catch that.
Yes, it's been revised in the document, and it's also been sent out in a number of different reminders in the compass. So we'll continue to reinforce that language as we go forward. The next one is there's an upcoming board retreat and orientation. That should help the direction of the board. The new board members, welcome to Vicki and to Derek. And it also, I think, will help to provide a better foundation for the remaining board members that are returning this year as we go forward to set some direction and understand what we need to be focused on in this 25 year. We anticipate Doug Jones's arrival. He's going to be here on Monday, and looking forward to that. I've had a few communications with him. Christine and I have worked a little bit on some of the ideas for the transition with the flow chart. And I think there'll be hopefully a helpful benefit for him to go forward on items that are in process and also items of high priority that are on the horizon that should be prioritized for him. And I'll also do a couple of days remote after Wednesday to help him as he gets a little bit more settled, and he's going to have questions, I'm sure, as we get into the latter part of March. And also a number of recent leadership lessons that I picked up on at this conference always come away with some good ideas. I did a 5-page report for Christine, and I'll pass a lot of this on to Doug and Dora. These are good topics for consideration for the future. Some of these relate directly to the association, others are related more to leadership, HR, financial, or mental health. Mental health really was an issue that was a pretty big topic. I think they had 4 or 5 sessions on that this year. So things change in the industry, and even though this was private clubs, it also relates to associations. So I had a really good seminar on hurricanes and how to prepare for those, how to communicate well. Some of that relates to us, some of it relates to the village, but it's still good information, something we can learn from. One speaker was named Carla Hall, who's a speaker from was on the Top Chef show. She started out as a model and went into becoming a chef, and her message was about leadership. And she said the greatest foe is the status quo. So it's true. The only constant is change. Another speaker was Brian Dawkins, who played for the Philadelphia Eagles, and his message was about leadership as well. When you're out of your comfort zone, and you're trying something new and different, who are your spotters? Sort of an analogy to lifting weights, and who's protecting you or who's backing you up. And another thing he said was be a thermostat, not a thermometer. So it's not good to get emotional and get high points when we get into difficult situations. Emotion's not your friend. So those are a few lessons, and I've shared one of those already with the staff, but those are things in the future that Dora or Doug can share as appropriate, and I'm happy to brief them on that. I want to also recognize Dora. She had a recent meeting this week with Christine and I with a builder, and helped to develop some communications to improve that understanding. I think that was a very beneficial meeting, and she deserves a lot of that credit, so well done. Also, I wanted to announce that we have studied the issue with the lagoon. I mentioned that in a meeting a couple of months ago with the Wildlife Overlook. We studied that with the vendor who does current work with the village as well as the club. And we're going to move forward with a program to help with that, with an aerator that has a timer. So it won't be running during the time of the evening sunset when all the birds come in, but it'll provide monthly maintenance. And we do have reserves to cover this. So I just wanted to mention this, that I think that'll be a positive development. Before we get into situations, if we let this go for 2 or 3 more years, we probably will have a bigger issue. This will help maintain that and improve the water quality and help protect that asset. So I just want to make sure that y'all do that. And finally, I just want to say thank you. This is my final board meeting, so I've enjoyed the time at the Bald Head Association and working with the team and working with all of you. And I think Doug will enjoy his time here, and I appreciate the time he's given me. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. You are going to be missed, very, very much so. I would like to just follow up and reiterate what Russ talked about with Dora. Quite frankly, all of our team members have been incredible, always are, but also a shout out, Pam Rainey's in the seats sitting in front of us, and you've gone above and beyond. We recognize the fact that Dora let us all know, and I'm glad she did. We need to know these things, that, you know, you helped us out quite a bit with the insurance thing going on. And also, personally, Pam was super fast to come over and do some looking at trees for me, so I can get that taken care of. But it seems like all around, everyone's upbeat. We've got new education in process, and just working together. You all jump in when you're needed, wherever you're needed, and we see it. So thank you. All right, and moving on from there to the financial report. Number 5, is Leanne remote?
She is here via Zoom and ready to talk.
Okay, hi Leanne.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Just want to go over for the new people a little bit. In my financials, usually Betty had worked with me earlier in the year to get a summary sheet to kind of tell you what's going on. So the rest of it is more of just a backup. Can you hear me? guys?
Yeah, we
Okay,
can hear you very well.
okay, just making sure. For the year end, we did well. We did better, I guess, than I expected. We almost made our forecast for the income. Our expenses were under, which is great news because as most of you know, we had to get a director, interim director. We had to hire a search firm. So coming in under expenses was great news. Our reserve funds, I give
Hey,
them,
Leanne, if I could jump in real quickly,
okay,
for Derek and Vicky. This fall was a challenge in terms of setting the budget and closing out the year. Russ was new. Leanne got involved in some things she'd never been involved with, and the staff got involved in budgeting, which it had really not had much of an impact on. So, first of all, they did a great job in both putting the budget together and getting the year together. And then additionally, it was Betty and my first year being involved in the financials. And so what Leanne is describing is really a lot of this was unfortunately a black box. And so you may be surprised that we found out this. I mean, whatever, we're surprised at that. But I think Leanne and Russ have really tightened up the processes around the budgeting and forecasting and reporting. And I think luckily there was some fat in it for last year, which allowed us to hire the new executive director and pay for that search, and also pay for Russ. And also, we're really, I think, in much better shape than we were going into next year. So that is a part of a transition that um, I just wanted to explain based how Leanne was describing that. So I think we're in pretty good shape heading into the year. We're in very good shape, and there's a lot of work to do on our financial reporting to help board and management and the members understand what we're doing. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Paul. All right, Leanne, go ahead and continue.
okay. And then I usually give you a synopsis of all the accounts we have and their balances at the month end, or in this case, the year end. And we did well. We came out on top, and I'm pleased with that. We got almost all of our people paid. There's a few we have liens on, but other than that, we got almost 100%. Not there yet. Anybody have anything they want to ask about the year end before we go to the January one?
Leanne, this is Vicky. I just have a question. So the reserve funds that are already identified and earmarked, are we looking at potentially doing a study to see if these are adequate, or how does that relate to the comments that Russ made about the reserve?
This year, that's what we're doing, a reserve study, a new study, and then we'll see where we are with the reserves. Does that help you?
Yeah, so it's specifically for these accounts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
Vicky, best practice for associations with any significant reserves and assets is probably about every 5 years to re-engage a reserve study. It's good practice, and it's very, very good practice for boards because it allows us to figure out what we need to reserve and where we may need to spend money, and also it's a prudent thing to do for a board.
And Vicky, I'll add to that. I'm sorry, go ahead, Betty.
Well, you can go ahead and finish this topic, then I have a question.
Okay. For Vicky's benefit, if you didn't know this, we did at the end of the last year, basically cover the reserves for the budget season, as well as another $90,000 for this year's reserves. We did have some misunderstanding about how those were accounted for with the auditor, but we have gotten clear guidance on that now. And Leanne's going to be doing a reserve summary sheet that will help to explain that, that will show both the income as well as the expenses. So sorry for that misunderstanding, but I think this will make it clear as we go forward for the board to understand.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Leanne.
I just have a question for Leanne and Paul, or Russ, maybe you and Leanne. I had sent a note saying I want to be able to take a look at, whoops, did I just lose you? There. I want to be able to take a look at year end, and obviously you did a great job identifying funds that we could use to pay for some of our incremental expenses with the hiring of a new director. But I want to understand, we've taken those funds and utilized them. I want a comparison of 2024 year end versus the 2025 full year budget. And I haven't gotten that yet. And I'd appreciate that, because I want to understand, are some of these reductions that we utilized to fund expenses last year, are we in any way going to need those funds in the upcoming year? And sort of where did it land? I always see them separately, 2024 and then a different report with 2025. So I'd like to see a comparison of that. So at the line item level. And then the second question I have is, how did we end up with that excessive that surplus for the reserves that you mentioned, that you sent out? Surplus of what to the tune of 90,000?
Betty, that was a surplus, an operating surplus from the year 2024. So that money was approximately $90,000 was applied to reserves above what we had budgeted for reserves.
Okay.
So that's what that was.
Okay. I understand now. Okay. So it would be helpful to get the 2024 year end against the 2025 full year. Can someone do that?
I will
Please.
sure work on that, Betty.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Betty, as a reminder, that applying that to reserves allows us to keep our dues lower in the future, because we've contributed $90,000 beyond
Sure.
what we planned on. So yeah,
Yeah.
So it's not
Mm-hmm.
it's not hidden away. We will actually, our members will see it as we get into budgeting for 2020.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Good. Okay. I just needed a clarification and an answer. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'll go to
ahead,
the
Leanne.
January ones now. I had a mistake. I looked down last night and looked, and I had operating expenses for January of over $1 million, and I had a little fit there. I had picked up the wrong figure. So that's why you got a change summary sheet late last night. I didn't want that in the books. The January summary sheet really doesn't help much there. You've got your fund balances, but other than that, there just isn't a lot of stuff to look at in January. The only thing I noticed was on the budget comparison that was big was the insurance for the employees that we were over. And the reason being, the insurance is due the first of the month. So I have to pay it before, so it shows up in the month before. I almost changed it in the budget to put 2 payments in January and then not one in December, so that it would look better, but it may always be behind, because it may look like we're way over budget, but we're not. It's just the way I have to pay it. So it's a timing issue there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anything really sticks out. I'm gonna change the aging report and start calling it the collection report, I believe, but the money's coming in. That's all I can say right now. It's really not due yet, so I can't give you an accurate thing about what that's gonna do.
Hey, Leanne.
Yes, Sir Paul.
The way we budget our income, because we bill at the beginning of the year. And I
Yeah,
think the most important report that you can work on is the aging or collection report over the next couple of months and
Mhm.
compare it to, I think probably if you could compare it to previous years, it'd be helpful because that's really telling in terms of whether we're on track. I mean, we can want the money as quickly as possible, but people are going to do
Mhm.
it. So anyway, a report on that.
I
I
think
know
we
you.
used to have that and you weren't interested in it anymore, so we
Oh,
backed off
that's
of it
not
to try to shorten
true.
things up.
Yeah,
Um,
that's not true.
it is too.
I tell you what, we could work
Um,
on making it clearer. So, but yes,
yeah, could I make a suggestion? I think one of the things we could do, Paul and Leanne, is just kind of review what our summary reporting is for the board. If we're going to continue to book all that income in our income statement, even though we haven't collected it, it would just be helpful in our summary report if we could find a way to articulate the actual as of that point in time.
yeah,
Because it really skews everything and it makes the
Uh,
report kind of meaningless.
We have this discussion every year. It does. I
Right.
totally agree with you.
So maybe
you-
we just, for the sake of the board, not change your income statement, but maybe reflect differently in the summary sheet.
I will
And
try to
Paul, we should talk about that.
figure out about doing that. Vicky and Derek, our funds all show up at the beginning. When I bill it, it shows up every bit of money that we're supposed to collect for the year. And it is not what we've collected. It's just what we're supposed to collect. And it has always been an issue with every board. And but I think they said if we went to a cash basis, that would do right. And then Russ says, no, we don't want to go to a cash basis. So I really don't know the answer to this, but
yeah. I mean, how we're going to do that, I think we get the new guy who I can't remember his name right now.
Doug,
Doug.
Yeah.
Well, we can plug in. I mean, we've sort of put off any real decisions on financial reporting until he gets in and
agree.
you two work together and make some recommendations. So and a lot of that's been put off since Carrie left to try to figure out, get somebody permanent in here. So we'll figure it out.
Okay, not a problem.
Yep.
But so I don't have anything else unless you guys have questions.
Anybody have any questions for Leanne?
This
before
is
she gets
Steve.
back?
I do. It's not, we discussed in the last several meetings about creating a separate bank account that would be viewed as an escrow account for construction deposits. And I know that's been on the radar. I just didn't know if that was decided and implemented yet, or if that was just still on the list.
I don't know if this is a different situation, but we do have the construction deposits in a different account.
It's still on the list. Again, I think that's something we need to work on for next year. That's going to be both a financial and a legal. As Leanne said, we have it in a separate account, but legally it's our asset and our liability. Nikki, what Steve's getting at is, it seemed to me, and I think it seems to Steve and others, that for some reason that ought to be in an escrow. When somebody gives us money as a deposit, it would seem natural to put that in an escrow account, not that we take it into our account and have that asset and that liability, not be a separate account. I guess from what we know, that we've never done that, and that actually isn't typical, but I think that's something we ought to look at, what sort of the best practice is on that. And
So
we need
Paul,
to,
I know that Leanne and Dora are poking into that a little bit,
Yeah.
and once again, when Doug gets here, they can, look a little further and come up with a plan if that's something, along with legally what we're able to do.
yeah, and then, yeah, I think that also want to be part of our, if we're reviewing the ARC processes, that can be that's a big part of the process. It could be a very touchy part of the process at the end. Because what happens is the original property owner often will put the money up, and then you buy the house, and then the next property owner, the subsequent owner, gets the money back, and there's really no trail there other than them trying to get money from each other. So I think that ought to be just looked at, the entire process. Probably just to make it tighter, for lack of a better term. I'm not a lawyer, so anyway.
Sat down with to discuss that process because I've had several contractors and builders who own the property before they sell it and sell it in between time. And that, like you said, that construction deposit comes back and is given to the new homeowner versus the one who put it down in the first place. And Andy did a really good job kind of explaining everything. I'll be more than happy to write up something for you guys to look over at the March meeting, and we can discuss kind of maybe blending that into the policy. So it's a little bit more digestible and understandable for not just us, but also for the builders and the contractors as well.
So that's good, Dora, but I think it's important to you and Leanne kind of figure something out.
Oh, yeah,
and share
for the
with
escrow
Doug and get his opinions on it as well.
Yeah.
And then write something up and get it to us would be amazing. Thank you. All right, any other questions for Leanne? Okay, Leanne, thank you so much. We'll let you get back to your numbers.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, moving on, we have Pam Rainey in the room, and she's going to talk about tree inspection process on the island.
Good morning, everyone. Can they hear me? To come up.
You might need to come closer.
Welcome to take a chair with you. Just put it. Yeah, you can stand too. That's fine. Whichever you're comfortable with.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I think it would really be beneficial if I just took a few moments to explain how this process grew over the years and where we're at right now. When I first joined BHA, I was responsible for the 3 communities, dripline communities, for the trees and their vegetation. And I was also responsible, and still am, for all the BHA land. We have bits and pieces everywhere. I started right after Florence, so you can imagine there was quite a bit of tree work to be done as a result of that storm, and it continued in that pattern for at least 2 or 3 years afterwards. What the process was at that time is I would go out, assess the situation, take pictures, tag trees, and then I would attend the next board meeting for their approval for my recommendations, whether it was a takedown or trimming that was needed. Now, there's 2 things with that. Obviously, if it was an emergency, if a tree was on somebody's home or Proctor, then we got right on that. And we did try to speed it up a little bit by using Dropbox. So that a person brought us something at the beginning of the month, didn't have to wait a whole nother month before they could have a decision. But that was a little cumbersome too for the board, number one. We had to have a quorum, obviously, to get those approvals. So what I did is, with John Kenny's help, is I had the arborist that we use most often, which is Robert Knowles. And he knows the island very well, he certainly knows my communities. And we walked each community and said to John, can we just handle this going forward, where we don't necessarily, unless it's something unique, we can use this process, get your approval, and then we just move on and we don't have to take it to the entire board. The board, when I went in front of the board to suggest this, it was approved. It does speed up things really appreciably, because arborists are a really finite resource. So people waiting a month or 2 before they can even speak to somebody about their concerns and what they like dealt with, it just got very mixed up. The other thing that also this helped was ARC. at the beginning, outside of my communities, all tree requests went to ARC. And it was up to them to get somebody to go out and you know, work with the homeowner and find out what's going on. They were obviously very, very busy and getting busier every week, it seemed like. So I went to him and I said, well, for now, why don't I just go out and do those for you? Well, yeah,
There we are.
still on that job. So, but using the process of having somebody from the board be sort of a partner or advisor is really, really helpful. I think it speeds things up. It certainly keeps for happier homeowners. The other thing is we've sort of segued into working with builders, which I really appreciate. If I'm driving along and I see the excavator going and I don't see any fencing or trees, I talk to the crew and say, you know, how can we help this live oak over here whose roots have been sliced, you know? And to be honest with you, for the most part, they've been appreciative of having that kind of coordination and help. I've also encouraged them to, you know, call me at the front side if you think you've got a piece of property that's going to be really difficult. I worked with Kim on a bill that was going on that they were going to take 3 trees down. And Kim brought it to my attention and we went out and we had a chat and could they move the design here and there, and they worked with us very well. And we saved the 3 trees, so they're still there, knock wood. So I'd be interested, you know, going forward, it's up to the board. Do you want to continue this process that we've been using? Can it be improved in any way? Because I'm very open to that as well. Trees never end, they keep growing. So, you know, it'll always be a really large chunk of work that BHA can support. And for the most part, I think it's appreciated. So I'll leave it up to y'all.
So Pam, I for one, and we can hear from everyone, appreciate actually what's turned into you being more of an expert in this field since you've been doing it for quite a while. I know you care, and I know you're making sure that you're not just cutting trees down and, you know, just, I guess, trimming them when needed. And you're making sure that you're with an expert as well, like Bobby Knowles or the service I'm using right now with their recommendations. So I would love for you to continue on, and we can hear from everybody, and then you let us know what you need from us. Okay. Any comments, anyone?
I mean, and I've only been around almost 23 years, 24 years. We have rules. The village has rules. Are they consistent? I mean, I think one of the things that frustrates people is well, let me ask that question.
I think, well, 2 things. It's when I find a tree or a tree limb that's overarching a sidewalk and getting in a house and find it's on BHA land, or excuse me, village land. You know, the village has an arborist of their own on staff, so they have always cooperated and taken care of that. I think one of my challenges is a lot of people sort of circumvent, and they get Stephen out there, and he takes the trees and approves them. But he's always good about getting back with me and saying, by the way, I approved all these trees. So I'm sort of out of the loop on that, which is not inappropriate. I mean, I could say it saves me.
Yeah, I guess that, what is he approving?
Steve, well, if contacted by a homeowner, he's been, as far as I know, very responsive. And goes out on his own. What we had been doing is sending both John Kenny and Steve for approvals. And I know John wasn't always available because he travels some off island. And sometimes it was just Steve saying yes, and that's what I had to work with.
Are you referring to Steve Boyette?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
No, that's good. Yeah, so I'm sure he gets a lot of calls when near streets or sidewalks, trees are hanging over, but it's good he's coordinating with you because that is more of a call on our part. So, okay.
So the only tree guidelines on private property are the BHA's?
That's, it's an interesting question because I got a call from Kilgore Ridge yesterday, and they said, we need your help on getting these dead trees approved. And I said, fine, but I just want to make sure I'm also working within the guidelines of your HOA, because I've been chastised by one or two other HOAs, and it's like getting in their business. And they said, no, absolutely not. We want to work through BHA rules. You know, so please, would you help us out? Of course, I was happy to do that. I think I'm hopeful that with a couple of the areas that we can still get it more of a cooperation, mutual cooperation between the two, because to your point, we really had knowledgeable people that help us with this. And, you know, I say no a lot, believe it or not. It's not everybody's trees come down. I did have one lady who wanted 9 down and at once, and it was no on all of them. So, you know, we follow the rules. We encourage other people. A lot of it is new education with new homeowners, to tell you the truth. You have to explain what is understory and, you know, what's the importance of trees. And you have a water issue. Well, cutting down fruit trees is not a smart thing to do because they soak up a lot of water. So, you know, we, I think, have a piece of that too, believe it or not. It's on the education side, or working with Kim and her publications to remind people, you know, here's where we're at, how we can help, and what's the importance to the whole island. I mean, my saying's always been keep it wild, you know, if you can. And I don't know if that answers your question, Paul, or not.
Yeah, I guess I'm still a little, all right, let's say I've got a tree and my insurance company has said,
Oh,
you don't cut that tree back, we're not going to insure you.
and
And
they are,
wait, and I'm in Kilgore Ridge, which is part of the BHA, but it also has its own HOA and is also a part of the village. What rules am I, who do I need to call?
okay, you know, I think, I hate to use this phrase, but it applies a lot. Sometimes things are very situational. If I could just respond to the insurance example. They're roaming the island, to tell you the truth, occasionally. And they're frightening people. I've had calls where they've been told they have 30 days to fix this.
Yeah, that's your emergency situations.
They're losing their insurance. Unfortunately, a lot of them aren't from around here, so they don't understand necessarily live oaks or you know, we keep at least 4 feet off the roof line. When I have a nice windy day, I like to go out and check homes because then I have a real accurate picture of, is it actually slapping the roof or is it still holding its own over the roof? If it's a real concern and I don't see a problem to the tree itself, to trim it back and trim it back correctly and use the right arborist, not necessarily mine, but that we use, I should say mine, but that we use, but to have a licensed arborist knows how to do cuts correctly so that the tree is not damaged over time. No, I do try to work with people and I understand their concern.
Well, I guess my question was more basic than that. Is the BHA the only entity that has oversight there?
That's a very good question.
So I would say, Paul, if a community is involved with the BHA, then we are step number 1 for anything that has to do with tree issues on the properties. I would say The harbor, Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, might be on their own unless they ask for our help. And Middle Island
Correct.
is on their own. Anything else would be going, if it's on the property, not on the street, not on the neighbor's area. I mean, you can call and say, you know, this lot no one lives on, but that is HOA land. So that's still going to them. And then probably Pam would try to connect with the lot owner. But yeah, it would start with us and
Okay, so if it is on private property,
Mhm.
a lot,
Mhm.
we're the only ones with any authority over it.
Yes, and I work with a lot of those instances where people will call and say, a branch is now from my empty lot to one side of my property is now intruding on our property and it's smacking the window or heading for my roof line. You are allowed to make a cut from your property line on.
Yeah.
It does not require permission from the lot owner. Lot owners are very reluctant to go ahead and chip in their expenses to take out the tree.
Imagine.
I've never had one yet, but I certainly have in several at stage 2 area where, you know, we took care of what was affecting your property correctly.
Yeah.
And yeah, it doesn't stop people from being protected. And BHA, I think, has a role in that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the property, the lot owners, nobody knows them, nobody's ever seen them.
No, sometimes they own lots for, you know,
They forget
40
about
years,
it.
35 years, and no one even knows. The family might not even know because it gets passed down. But then, Paul, also, when it comes to Steve Boyette and the village, what they're going to be dealing with a couple times a year, they go along every street, trim back and inspect a lot of these canopy, the limbs that are hanging over the street.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
So
I-
again,
I have a question, Pam. Did you say, I don't know if I heard this correctly, that you have been doing the, for lack of a better word, inspections with a board member, specifically in the past, John Kenny, and with the island arborist, Bobby Knowles? And if so, why would a board member need to accompany you?
I don't think they do anymore.
It doesn't, it's more.
I don't know that it's required. I think, in all honesty, because I used to ask Carrie that, especially as I picked up the island, that was it necessary? And her attitude was, well, it's nice to have somebody between you and the homeowner, you know, if there's going to be a difficulty. But what I've experienced is if somebody doesn't, is not happy and does not agree with me, then yes, I'm bringing either the expert in or I bring in a board member to kind of have my back a little bit. But to say or explain why this isn't going to work. Because, you know, I acknowledge people come from everywhere where they're allowed to do whatever they want with their property. So it's really a new world for them. But that's a really rare example, I have to say. Doris with me a couple of times, but I said, yeah, that's really great. That's not gonna work. And it really is not, I can't even think of a handful of times that it really got ugly.
So then that could happen with anything you have to deal with. But to piggyback on what Vicky just said, do you have a good comfort level? And now that you've been doing this for a while, are you good with going out there with just an arborist and without a board member?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
It would be nice to know that there's one person that,
Okay.
or you or whomever, that is saying, you know what, I'm gonna need help on this.
Yep.
You know, it just, it's not sinking in, it's becoming contentious, and that would be helpful.
That would always be the case. You've got, I know on Island, Betty, Vicky, and myself are here all the time. You have some of the staff, you would have the executive director, so you have resources. But I personally am comfortable with you dealing with this and then coming to us when you feel like you need to reach out.
Thank you. Then I'll send it on, still send things on to Stephen Boyette, so he.
Absolutely, and that's a good thing. Always, our biggest goal now going forward is working in tandem with the other island entities, so that sounds good.
He's been a big help to me in the past, so.
Yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge. Steve, it sounded like you might have a question for Pam.
Yeah, I think Betty and I both have our hands up there. What it appears is that we have had a long-standing informal process that, you know, may be working just fine, but it sounds like we would really benefit and really need to have this process documented, both for internal SOPs as well as externally, so that when a homeowner or a landowner has to have a tree cut, that they know what the expectation should be from their standpoint. You know, when do I contact, who do I contact, and what can I expect that process to be? So both from an internal standpoint of what do we do with it, and what are the expectations placed on us, as well as for some transparency for the homeowners. I think that would be very helpful to have that in place.
One important thing, and I'm sorry, we have now got an online process where you can send tree requests directly to me.
And where is that on? It's on the website. You
Yes,
go
it's
to
on the
member
website. Now,
resources.
we don't have to
Probably.
That's a 50-50 sort of situation, because a lot of people just call or they email me directly. But we do have quite an education piece on our website about trees and the importance of, and how BHA, you know, handles it. And we refer people to it if they haven't read it before. I don't know if that helps with your, I mean, I'm certainly willing to write a process for the board's approval. This last time around, like I say, almost 2 years ago when I approached the board, I was going to the board for approval. It was something, you know, I had to have, but it was, I think, the best thing for BHA and the relationship.
So I think that is what Steve's saying, and it's really an excellent idea. Always looking to cover ourselves and you. If you can put some facts together, even maybe reference what you've got there online and what you've got written up.
I'd be happy to do that.
And then we can get together and vote on that. We should always be documenting things. I guess for the future, if there's a new Pam one day, so they know that. Does that answer that question for you, Steve?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you for that input. I appreciate it.
And then Betty, you had a question?
Yeah, my suggestion would be in terms of any support that Pam might need. I believe John was involved in that because he was the board liaison with the Resource Conservation and Beautification Committee. And I would like to see, rather than saying a board member, I'd like to see that support for Pam be sourced from that committee.
Okay. Sorry,
I
taking
think
notes.
that's part of what their job is.
Okay.
That too.
All right. Any other questions for Pam before she goes and inspects some trees today?
Actually, it's my day off.
Oh, well, thank you for coming in. Again, above and beyond. All right, Pam, thank you so much. And again, personally, thank you so much for my emergency situation. I appreciate it.
Just call. Thank you. Good night. Good night. Goodbye.
Okay, two things. We're at the end of the this portion of the meeting. However, a couple of things I'd like to say, and because we changed times, I do want to give, if there's anyone online that has a question, let me know that while I'm just letting everyone know that we had one heck of an odd year so far as storms, fog, high winds, tornado, you name it. We've covered the gambit with it. And unfortunately, along with that, meetings went to Zoom only. we were unable to do the Smith Island party. We did not have our committee thank you brunch. I mean, I cannot tell you, I'm gonna have to write a little synopsis of this past year to let everyone know really how tough it was on the team members, Russ and myself. It's been a lot. And so we love our committees. We love all the committee members. We're thankful to them. I apologize. We didn't have a thank you brunch. We'll look at hopefully doing a little something for them, but just I think a hearty thank you is applicable here, and we appreciate everyone's help this year. Also letting everyone know, I didn't even truly welcome Derek and Vicky. We're so grateful to have two new board members sitting alongside of us and helping us out this year, and we've got a lot of work to do. And if are there any member comments?
No.
No? Wow, okay. So with that being said,
We have Barbara Grant. Mr. Miller, Barbara.
see if she has a question.
Barbara, you want to speak?
Trying. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And my golden retriever. So thank you, everybody. We've been trying to attend your meetings from Flores Bluff, Killigray Ridge. If you don't know me, I'm the president of that organization, and we're trying to do our part to keep the island operating and beautiful, and appreciate working in tandem with you folks. I just noted, I'll work backwards regarding the trees. The tree request online form is very easy to get to and clear. And I would just suggest, to Steve's point about documenting the process, there's a little introductory paragraph there, and just putting a simple statement of the process right with the application might be a good place to do that. Just because that's where people go. It's a simple one click. And that's what we've, pardon?
I said, great advice, and thank you so much for pointing that out. I see Dora typing away right now, which means—
Hi, Dora. Congratulations, Dora. I think I really appreciate what Pam was saying. I think it would be great to do like a walk around of our community where we have trees that are impinging, because we now go one by one. We get an email. And by the way, for Flores Bluff, Killigray Ridge, an owner will contact us first. We've got them pretty well trained. And then we work with our landscaper and to get an ARC request. And a lot of times it's just too long. So I think it would be great if we can talk about doing a walkabout. That's what we have. With your resources, tie some ribbons around trees, and then we pay a landscaper to do that trimming. We do not have specific guidelines for landscaping. We refer to the BHA guidelines and follow those. And there are some guidelines for this from the village. They're mostly not about trees. They're like mulch and pine straw and things like that. So we refer to and stay consistent with BHA guidelines on that area.
Excellent. I don't see where there would be a problem with Pam setting aside some time and just walking the community with you. I think that would be helpful, actually.
Working backward, you talked about deposits that you folks hold. I just might make a suggestion. We recently made a decision to put some of our reserves in a money market fund, which does have some risk, but our board agreed that putting our reserves to work would be good for the community. And I just would offer a suggestion. What if, I don't know if those deposits are interest bearing, but I think it would be
all of our assets we hold are interest bearing, and we also have use a product where the money is moved amongst banks, so it's also all federally insured. So we actually do that.
Yeah. You guys are have a little more at risk than we do.
Yeah.
But just a suggestion, it would be interesting that if sometimes that interest would be, or that deposit would be held for several years. And I think it would be cool if the interest on that was returned to the owner, like in the form of a extra tree or something that you plant on their behalf. Just an idea. And finally, the 2025 budget is not posted. I know we're still scrambling on our 2025 budget, but just FYI, it's not on the website for owners to see. And I did get a comment from one of our owners about the annual meeting with BHA that we didn't see finances. So other than that, welcome to the new members. We're excited for another year to be working in tandem. And please, if you hear any issues with our community, fbkr67@gmail.com is where you find us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
Go for German.
Okay, so that brings us down to the adjournment and from public session. Do I have?
Reconvene at 9:45. 9:45.
Yeah, okay, reconvening at 9:45. So I call the meeting closed. I don't have to take a vote on that. All right, so I'll see you all at 9:45. I've got to call the tree people.
Thank you, everyone.
That was like the worst time, darn it.